Next up, after more than 50 years, a family-run iconic institution in the Boston restaurant landscape is changing hands. Legal Seafoods is being sold to another restaurant group, PPX Hospitality, which also owns the Smith & Wollensky Steakhouse chain and 3 Strager restaurants in the area. Longtime president and CEO and the face of the company, Roger Berkowitz, has said he wasn't planning to sell until the pandemic hit his company and the rest of the industry hard. The restaurant had been in the Berkowitz family since it opened its first location in Inman Square in 1968, with plastic plates and utensils and lobster coming in at less than $3 a pound, as described in this Boston Globe review, which told readers, if you're fond of bounties of the sea served truly fresh and honestly prepared, you will want to visit. Well, the same thing could have been written yesterday. A half-century later, Roger Berkowitz joins me now. Say it ain't so, Roger.
I know. I wish I could say it wasn't so, but sadly it is.
So how does this feel? 50 years in the family, your first restaurant. By the way, I'm sitting at my house in Inman Square about 100 yards away from that fish market and first restaurant. I'm serious. How does this feel after all these years?
You know, it is really kind of difficult putting it in words because this has played such an important part of my life. I mean, I've been in this, doing this day in and day out for 46 years, if you can believe that. And then before that, as a kid, after school. So it's really like, in some ways, like losing a family member. So it's sort of bittersweet, but, you know, sort of faced with the realities of today. You know, in business, you got to make sort of the best decisions, and sort of agonizing over this for the last 9.5 months, have really come to the decision. This is really best for us and also best for the brand. You know, it's interesting. If this had happened pre-pandemic, you know, we wouldn't necessarily be focused on moving into different channels. We may not have been allowed to, given the way those deals unfold. But in this kind of scenario, it's sort of like it feels right because we've always sort of pivoted over time from my grandfather's grocery store to my father's fish market to the restaurants. And now it's time to pivot again. We're still going to stay in the food business and we're still going to stay in the fish business. We're just going after new channels.
Are you sad?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of sad, like a memory of someone, you know, that you've had a closeness and a relationship with, a family member. It feels like a family member, frankly. You know, so many of our friends and relationships have evolved from the restaurants. So, yeah, it is sad. And the other great thing about it, you know, about the restaurants and thinking back at it, how many other businesses, I mean, outside of yours, Jim, where you get a chance to meet so many people from so many different walks of life? It's a great education, and it's very, very gratifying.
Let's go back to the fish market and 50 years ago. Here is a picture of you and your father behind the counter at the fish market in Inman Square. And the reason I put this up is I couldn't tell. Were you trying to achieve the Frank Zappa or the Elvis look? No, he's on the far left. What were you trying to achieve there, Roger?
Yeah, yes, I was on the far left. You know what? Yeah. I was 17 at the time, and I just wanted to make sure I knew how to grow facial hair. Ironically, I later met Frank Zappa in our downtown Park Square restaurant, but you brought up the reference.
Do you have a story? Is there one story that sticks out above all others from 40-plus years?
Oh, you know, Jim, there are so many, but one of the ones that always sort of brings a smile on my face, Eileen Ford, who ran the modeling agency, was a regular customer in Park Square, and she and her husband would come in fairly frequently, and she was a hot ticket. And one day while she's there eating, Robert Wagner came in with his daughter and his daughter's roommate. They were freshmen at Harvard, and the daughter looked a spitting image of Dudley Wood. And so this obviously did not go unnoticed by Eileen. And she said, do you think he'd mind if I ran up there and sort of approached his daughter? And I said, you know, go for it. Go ahead. And so she went up, she approached them, and she came back 3 minutes later and looked at me. She said, that's not his daughter.
I didn't know what the punchline was going to be, obviously. So, Roger, if Legal Seafoods was, I was going to call it a chain, but I don't want you to yell at me.
You.
If Legal Seafoods was felled by the pandemic, as you say, what does that say about the hundreds of thousands of small independent restaurants around this country that have been begging for government to help them survive?
Yeah, it is very sad because, look, in the restaurant business in particular, because it is a cash flow business. If customers aren't coming in, the cash isn't coming in. It also is extraordinarily labor intensive. And most restaurants have reasonably good locations, so you're paying very high rents. So during the pandemic, look, most restaurants can sort of slide by a bad winter season. They can slide by a recession to some degree. But when businesses are cut off, you're doing 50% of your business or 60% of what you normally did. That's hard. And so everyone is sort of in the same ballpark here proportionally. So you either decide to get bigger, as the group buying us Daniel is doing, because they'll sit on it and then they want to expand nationally and internationally, or you get smaller, or you're lucky enough that 50% of your business was takeout. So it's a combination of those things. You can't stay the same and do nothing because the bills continue to come in. So unfortunately, it's a catch-22 for virtually everyone in the business.
So what are you going to be doing on the e-commerce front, Roger?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Years ago, actually going back to the mid '70s, we had one customer who drove us kind of crazy because she had to have fish, swordfish as it was, shipped to her 7 days a week because she ate swordfish 7 times a day. And this was before FedEx and before anything else. And so we had to figure out how to do it. And that was my job, figuring out how to do it. And then I had a group of doctors who moved to Ohio, and they had to figure it out. And I said, this is driving me crazy. I'm going to go ahead and just sort of formalize this. The woman who had to eat swordfish 7 times a day, by the way, was Carol Channing. And I think she lived to be 97 or 98 years old. But that's what sort of got us in it. So it's always been a small part of what we've done. And we've grown it over the years. It's been more celebratory, but now it's time to make it every day. We have a process called Nitro Fresh. So I think the market, look, there's never been a better time, I think, in mankind to do direct deliveries. 70% of the great seafood was always served in restaurants. With the restaurants being impacted now, this is a channel that I think is ripe for development.
I know you've done a lot of media. Before we go, is this the first interview you've ever done in your shower? Can I tell you something, Roger? I know that I speak for everybody watching. One of our favorite places on the planet and one of our favorite people. So don't go far away, and good luck in the new business, Roger Berkowitz.
I'll be there. Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate it.